I can still remember the sound of laughter, their laughter, echoing across the cobblestone streets of Florence. It used to haunt me. Now, it just reminds me how far I've come. The city skyline outside my penthouse window glows with gold this evening. New York never really sleeps, and tonight neither can I. My phone keeps buzzing on the marble countertop, a name flashing that I haven't seen in years. Ryan, my ex-husband. I stare at it for a long moment, my reflection in the glass sharp and calm. Silk blouse, gold earrings, hair in a clean twist, everything perfectly in place. Everything he once said made me too much. The message preview reads, "Hey, long time. The guys and I were talking about you. We should catch up while we're in town." My lips curve, but it's not quite a smile. The guys, his friends, the same ones who thought it'd be funny to watch me beg for help in a country I barely knew. I take a slow breath, the scent of my jasmine candle mixing with the city's chill through the open window. Funny how time changes everything. They left me stranded once. Now they're the ones trying to find their way back to me. 3 years ago, I thought I was living my dream. Ryan had just closed a major deal with his tech firm, and he wanted to celebrate with a boys' trip. Except this time, he insisted I come along. "You've earned a little vacation too, babe," he said, brushing a strand of hair from my cheek, as if affection could erase months of neglect. We landed in Florence on a sunlit afternoon. The air smelled like espresso and stone dust, the kind of scent that makes you think life is grander than it really is. His friends, our friends as he liked to call them, joked constantly, loud and careless, ordering expensive wine, tossing euros on tables like confetti. I laughed when they laughed, even when it was at my expense. The first crack came during dinner on our third night. Ryan joked that I couldn't survive a day without him. Everyone laughed, including him. I felt my throat tighten, but I smiled, hiding my hurt behind a sip of Chianti. The next morning, I woke up to an empty hotel room. His luggage was gone. So were the guys. My phone missing. My wallet empty. For a moment, I thought it was a prank. Ryan loved teaching lessons. I told myself they'd be back in an hour. They weren't. I remember wandering through narrow alleys, the sound of church bells echoing through the streets as panic slowly replaced disbelief. The tourist smiles blurred around me. I tried to explain, to ask for help, but my voice trembled, and the words came out wrong. I'd never felt smaller. By nightfall, the only thing left in my bag was a small silver bracelet, the one my grandmother gave me before she died. "If you ever feel lost," she'd said, "touch this and remember who you are." So I did. I sat on the cold stone steps near the Arno River, the bracelet cool against my skin, and I promised myself no tears. Not one more for a man who found amusement in my suffering. That night, I walked into a small cafe and asked for work. My voice shook, my pride burned, but the woman behind the counter, Lucia, looked at me as if she saw something in me I couldn't yet see. And that's where my real life began. Lucia's cafe smelled like fresh bread and roasted espresso beans, warm, comforting, and alive. It became my refuge. I started wiping tables, stacking cups, anything she needed. My Italian was clumsy at first, but kindness doesn't always need translation. Lucia never asked for explanations. She just smiled and said, "Work hard, learn fast." And I did. In those first weeks, I slept in the small storage room above the cafe, wrapped in borrowed blankets, listening to the hum of Florence outside. Every night, I stared at the cracked ceiling and repeated the same words, "You will not be their joke anymore." Lucia taught me to make coffee, real coffee, the kind that needed patience and precision. She said, "The trick is knowing when to stop the pour. Too soon, it's bitter. Too late, it's weak." Somehow, that became a metaphor for everything in my life. I learned to balance plates, to greet customers, to read faces. I saved every euro I earned, keeping a folded note in my apron that said, "Strength is silent." I wrote it myself the night I almost broke down. By winter, Lucia trusted me with the register. By spring, she handed me a stack of business papers and said, "You're good with details. Help me grow this place." That's how it started. Spreadsheets at night, recipes in the morning, dreams in between. One day, an American couple walked in, travel writers. They were charmed by the cafe's atmosphere and asked who managed it.
Lucia pointed at me.
Lay, she said. She runs everything now. The article they wrote called it The Heart of Florence, run by a woman who rebuilt her life one espresso at a time. It went viral. Tourists started coming just to meet the American woman who never gave up. Months later, an investor contacted me. He'd read the article and wanted to expand the brand internationally. I told him I wasn't ready. But Lucia, my angel in an apron, took my hand and said, "You are more ready than you think." I returned to the US 2 years after that night by the river. This time, not as Ryan's wife, but as Evelyn Ross, founder and CEO of Arno Cafe and Company. We opened our first branch in Boston, then another in New York. Ryan never knew. I didn't post about it, didn't brag. I let the silence speak for me. The world saw a woman building a coffee empire.
He saw nothing until now.
I sometimes wonder if he'd even recognize me. The girl who once begged him to come back has turned into a woman whose calendar is booked months in advance, whose name is whispered in boardrooms. Still, there are nights when I touch that silver bracelet and remember the river, the hunger, the fear. I let myself feel it, not as pain, but as proof. Proof that even humiliation can be holy if it teaches you who you are. The message from Ryan stayed unread for 3 days. I wasn't sure if I wanted to open it, not because I cared, but because I wanted the moment to feel right. When I finally did, it was almost laughable. He wrote that he and the guys were coming to New York for a business trip. They'd heard about Arno Cafe, my cafe, and wanted to catch up. He said he was proud of me.
Proud.
That word hit like static. Still, I agreed to meet. Closure has its own flavor, and I was ready to taste it. The following Friday, I waited at the flagship cafe, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. I designed it myself. Warm wood, soft lighting, art from Florence on the walls. Every inch of it was a love letter to the life I rebuilt from their cruelty. When they walked in, it was almost cinematic. 4 men in expensive suits, trying too hard to look young. Ryan looked older, somehow smaller. His confidence was still there, but the edges were frayed. "Eve," he said, his voice uncertain.
Wow.
"You look amazing." I smiled, polite but distant. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." They took in the place, the waitstaff in tailored aprons, the subtle Italian music, the elegant simplicity. One of them whistled. "This place is incredible. You manage it." "I own it," I said softly, stirring my coffee. The spoon's gentle clink against porcelain filled the silence that followed. Ryan laughed, awkwardly. "Of course you do. I mean, that's just wow. You've done well for yourself." I leaned back in my chair, letting them squirm.
"I did," I said.
"Especially considering the last time I saw you all, I was alone in a foreign country with nothing but my passport and a bracelet." The air went cold. Their faces shifted, confusion, guilt, denial, like a slideshow of cowardice. "Eve, come on," one of them muttered. "That was years ago. We were drunk. It was just a stupid joke." A joke. My voice was quiet but sharp enough to cut glass. "You left me stranded in another country, terrified and penniless. I begged hotel staff to let me stay another night before they threw me out. You thought that was funny." Ryan rubbed his temple, avoiding my eyes. "We didn't think you'd survive." I interrupted. "You didn't think I'd survive. That's the part you never say out loud." They looked at each other, unsure who should speak next. I stood, smoothing my blazer, the silk lining whispering against my skin. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice calm now. "I did survive. More than that, I thrived. The humiliation you gave me became the foundation of everything you see around you. Every cup of coffee served here carries a piece of that pain, transformed, refined, and sold for $12 a cup." Ryan's eyes met mine for the first time. They were glossy, uncertain. "Evelyn, I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I was young, stupid." "No," I said simply. You are cruel. There's a difference. For a moment, no one spoke. The cafe buzzed softly around us. Laughter, the hiss of milk frothing, a jazz tune playing somewhere in the background. The world moved on, even as they froze in their own shame. I leaned forward. You came here to see if I'd still be the girl who cried in Florence. I'm not. That girl's gone. You left her there. The woman standing in front of you built an empire from her ashes. Ryan swallowed hard. What do you want from us? I smiled faintly. Nothing. You already gave me everything I needed. Ryan looked at me like a man staring at his own reflection for the first time, realizing he didn't like what he saw. His friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, avoiding my gaze, pretending to study the menu they clearly weren't reading. I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the silence. I said, you all used to laugh about control, about how easy it was to make people feel small. I guess it's ironic that you're the one sitting in my cafe now, asking for time, attention, forgiveness. Ryan cleared his throat. Evelyn, please. We're not here for pity. I just thought maybe we could. Do business? I interrupted, my tone gentle, almost amused. That's what your message said, right? Catch up while we're in town? I'm guessing you didn't realize who owns Crown Bean Roasters, the company your firm's been trying to partner with. The color drained from his face. One of his friends muttered, You're Crown Bean? I nodded. Co-founder. Majority shareholder. We've been reviewing your pitch deck all week. Their shock hung heavy in the air. I could almost hear their pride cracking. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on the table. You want my signature on that deal?
Fine.
I'll sign. On 3 conditions. They all looked up. First, I said, you donate a percentage of your next quarter's profits to a women's shelter in Florence. Name it Lucia's house. Ryan blinked. Who's Lucia? The woman who helped me when you didn't. I replied simply. Second, every one of you publicly acknowledges what you did. Not to me, to yourselves. Post it, tell it, confess it however you want. But own it. Stop hiding behind the phrase boys being boys. That excuse is older than your guilt. The third condition came softer, almost a whisper. And finally, don't ever contact me again. No texts. No calls. No apologies. You don't get to rewrite my story now that I've survived it. Ryan looked down at his hands, his voice breaking just slightly. You really hate me that much? I tilted my head, studying him for a long moment. No, Ryan. I don't hate you at all. Hate would mean you still matter. I just outgrew the version of myself that ever needed your approval. He nodded slowly, defeated. His friends mumbled something about being sorry. I believed one of them, maybe. The others just wanted to escape the discomfort. As they stood to leave, I added quietly, remember, when you laugh at someone's fall, you're teaching the world how to laugh at your own. Life has a way of circling back. They walked out into the golden afternoon light, shoulders heavy, silence between them louder than any words they could say. I turned back to the window, watching their reflections fade into the crowd. Then I pulled out my phone and texted my assistant. Contact legal. Approve the deal, if they meet the conditions. She replied instantly. Consider it done. And just like that, justice, quiet, elegant, complete, was served. A week later, I received a photo in my inbox. It was from Ryan, no words, just an image. A plaque being hung above the door of a small brick building in Florence. The sign read, Lucia's house, a shelter for women starting over. I stared at it for a long time. For once, there was no anger, no ache. Just quiet peace. He'd kept his word. Maybe guilt had driven him, or maybe something deeper, but I didn't need to know. Closure doesn't always come with explanations. Sometimes it just arrives, like the morning sun, asking for nothing in return. Business kept growing. Arno Café expanded into Paris, then Tokyo. Lucia called me one night crying, happy tears. You did it, Figlia Mia, she said. You turned pain into purpose. But the truth was, I didn't do it alone. Every woman who believed again after being broken had a hand in building this. Every laugh that once hurt me became a brick in the foundation of something bigger. One rainy evening, after the last customer left, I sat alone in the New York cafe. The city shimmered outside, glass, rain, and headlights merging into a watercolor of motion. I opened the small wooden box I keep behind the counter. Inside was that silver bracelet, still shining, still whole. I ran my fingers over it, whispering my grandmother's words. If you ever feel lost, touch this and remember who you are. I smiled. I remember now, I murmured. I always will. In the window's reflection, I didn't see the woman who'd been left behind in Florence, broke, humiliated, small. I saw the woman who rose, elegant, self-made, unshakable. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to laugh. Not the bitter kind that hides pain, but the kind that comes from peace. They left me lost in Europe. But that's where I found myself. Now, when people ask about the secret behind my success, I just smile and say, it started with a really bad vacation. Because sometimes, life doesn't destroy you to punish you. It breaks you open to rebuild you stronger, wiser, and freer than you ever thought possible. I picked up my cup, took one last sip of coffee, and whispered into the quiet room, as if to that younger version of myself by the river. You made it, Evelyn. You finally made it home.